Hey, deserving listeners, it's time to continue our journey with Azan and Nicole. Let's watch the show.
Honey, I think that, that how much I love you.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm sure that we're gonna work out together to make everything amazing. Will you please marry me? So, Nicole, will you please marry me?
Oh my God. Are you serious?
Really?
Yeah.
Okay, I'm gonna...
Are you serious?
So this show always gives us these moments, and then they just dash our dreams with future episodes of them fighting. Hopefully that doesn't happen. I don't know. I just like to see people fall in love and be happy. So this is a good moment, but I'm worried about the future.
I don't exercise, okay? This is not a thing for me.
Almost there, Lizzie. Oh my gosh, Lizzie.
When I hear Azan say that kind of stuff, it just makes me feel like maybe I'm not good enough.
Yeah, I mean, there's so many other ways to think about it for Azan, so many different ways to communicate about it. They're heading up a hill. He's having a pretty easy time with it. She's having a hard time with it. And his way of seeing it is you're lazy, and he's calling her lazy and say, come on, push, instead of you just got engaged. You're on vacation. You're not in a rush. Like, just take your time. I don't know what's going on there for him. And then his narrative is like, she needs to work out more. She needs to do this. That doesn't bode well for this situation between the two of them.
Actually, you're really good, And I would love if you could do things that I do. Like being into gym, healthy food. Because I'm afraid if, for example, I go to America, we're just eating, fast food all the time, and that's scaring me.
It's not what I want.
I know, I'm just telling what's scaring me when I'm in Morocco,
I don't know how they're going to work out this issue, because he seems to want her to be different, her to exercise, her to eat different, her to maybe look different. I'm worried about that one.
Yeah, you can sit down. Okay? You have to work out, honey. That's what I told you. That's big, for your health. I know that I love you. I swear, God. I know that I want to marry you. I just want you to change a little bit, just a little bit. Just work out, and stuff like this. Yes, that's good for you, for both of us. You know that.
There's a lot of culture and oppression and marginalization for people with different body shapes. And there's a lot of assumptions that, well, she needs to change, she's unhealthy, and so on. You could imagine a lot of things that people would say. Given this show, I suspect it's going to spin out of control, and then we're going to see her get real hurt.
Don't you think so?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So we just saw her shut down. I suspect that she's heard that a lot throughout her life, that she needs to be different, she needs to do this and that. She said some things along these lines where she would say, oh, you don't want to change me, do you? It sounds like you want to change me, which is a valid thing to say. I am who I am, and if you love me, then you love me, and if you don't love me, then you don't love me, but I am who I am, and no one can tell me that I need to be different. That's up to me to be different. And that's totally valid, right?
Me and Azan need to make sure we're on the same page about our relationship. And I'm just worried that maybe he'll wake up one day and realize that I'm not the way he thinks I should look.
Yeah, I worry about the two of them in this respect as well.
For all this trip, that the most important thing is to take her to the desert. They're supposed to be amazing, but all what Nicole do is compliment there. And that's not fair. I don't like that. You're always using fun in a way.
Yeah. Not much to do when you have no one to talk to.
Yeah, it's not a good conversation, not a very constructive conversation. They're communicating kind of. He's saying, you're on your phone a lot. And she's saying, well, there's not much to do when there's no one to talk to. A more functional way to communicate that from his point of view would be, so when you're on your phone, it feels kind of distancing from me and it hurts my feelings. And I feel like I want to have a good moment with you. And so when you're on your phone, it hurts my feelings. But you'll see a lot of people will do that. It's like, put your phone down. How come you're so addicted to your phone? Instead of owning your feelings, knowing your feelings, owning them, and then communicating them, giving the other person a chance to rise to the occasion. For her, she could say something like, well, okay, I hear that you don't want me to be on my phone. I'm guessing you want to have a close interaction with me, but you don't say much and you don't offer much up. And so I just kind of went to my phone. So they could say that, but instead he said, how come you're always on your phone? And, well, you don't say much, so.
Mm-hmm. So did you and Nicole get a chance to video chat today?
No.
It's just been hard, knowing she's so far away and I can't talk to her, I can't convince her, I can't, walk her through some of the hard parts.
Yeah.
I wish she'd just hurry up and get home.
So total speculation. There's not really any indication of this, but I've seen situations before where someone presents like Nicole does, where they seem childish in certain ways, naive in certain ways, dependent in certain ways, low self-esteem in certain ways, some issues with competency, meaning that they don't feel very competent or they don't feel very worthwhile. There's some indications that she might have some of those schemas. That there's a dynamic between parents and child where the parent, because they're very concerned about their child, will inadvertently keep the child immature, keep the child dependent. So there's both people kind of win. They both gain something from that. The mother or the parent will gain lack of anxiety or reduced anxiety because they're protecting the child from things. And this is a very simplistic way of looking at it. And the child gains something because they get someone to take care of them. But they both lose something because the child doesn't gain the ability to get their own self-worth and learn their own ways of coping in the world independent of their parents. And the parent has to always be there and constantly pick up things around the child because the child remains incompetent, remains that of like a 10-year-old in their decision-making. And so there might be some issues around that. And what some people will do as children because they have a tremendous pressure inside of them that they interpret as, I want my independence. I want to move on to the next stage in life. I don't want to feel this way anymore. I don't want to feel dependent anymore. I don't want to feel incompetent. I don't want to feel like I need other people to solve my problems, particularly my parents. And so instead of really examining that in therapy and really taking your time and working on those schemas, getting corrective attachment experiences, they'll just jump to some drastic behavior that they interpret as this leap forward in their maturity and in their independence. So they might have a child, or they might get married, or they might move to another country, or they might move across the country. But all their problems come with them. It's not like it solves their problems. So you might see people go traveling in other countries by themselves in this effort to get away from other people whom they feel very dependent on. Or they might actually cheat on people because they're trying to gain their independence pathologically through deception in that way. Or there's various different ways that you can see people do this. Sometimes they call it passive-aggressive personality. Sometimes they call it dependent personality. There's a lot of different terms for it. Listen to all my deep dives on personality on that. You have to become a patron of the podcast to do that, by the way. So it's possible. There's really no indication of this, but I've seen this before where the person in Nicole's position will say, well, if I marry someone from another culture in another country, this will be a leap forward in my independence and my move away from my mother, because I know that my mother doesn't want me to do this. And so it feels like I'm being independent. But it's not actually being independent because the person isn't really standing on their own 2 feet and being able to love themselves independent of having to take these drastic sort of rebellious actions. We've all seen teenagers who are rebellious, or even kids start to rebel at the age of 2 forward, essentially. And there's a lot of different functions for rebellion against parents, one of which is to feel like you're your own person, like you can stand on your own 2 feet. And one of the ways that you start experimenting with that when you're young, developmentally, is you just oppose your parents. You just say no to them. Whatever they are, you do something different. And that feels independent, but it's not actual independence because it's still in relation to someone else. So I always say that there's 3 stages to assertiveness. The first stage is to do whatever the person says to do and resent it. The second stage is to just say no to everything the other person is saying. But that's not independence. You're just saying no. But it is a movement in the direction of independence because you are showing that you can say no. The third phase is to actually be your own person while considering other people's feelings. So you can say no, but you don't just say no reflexively because you care about their feelings and you try to balance everyone's needs into the situation. So I wonder if Nicole is in that space where she is in a phase of no, mom, I'm not going to listen to you. I'm going to do this other thing and this other person, and I'm going to live my life with that other person. But then instead of having her own 2 feet and her own maturity, she transitions from dependency on mom to dependency on Azan. I have to say, like I said, I have no data on that. I will say I have extremely limited data on that. And so it's pretty much just a shot in the dark. While I'm on the topic, subscribe below, like the video if you can. It's always nice when people give the little thumbs up. Hit the bell, comment below. What do you think? What do you think about dependency, this kind of thing? By the way, a lot of people on the internet and unfortunately therapists will call this codependency. That's actually a whole different concept that has to do with addiction. And so when people say codependent, what they should be saying, clinically speaking, is dependent. So just note, there's something about the word codependent that people like. It just sounds better than dependent. I don't know. But codependent, while I'm on the topic, is you have the dependent person who might be dependent on alcohol. So they are dependent on alcohol, meaning that if they stop drinking, they have massive withdrawals or they need it for some emotional coping skill. And then often you have the codependent, meaning the co-pilot. You have the pilot and the co-pilot. You have the dependent and the codependent. And the codependent can often be dependent, but the codependent is codependent on the substance. So you have the person who is suffering from alcohol addiction, and you have the co-addict to alcohol. And those 2 people work together to create a system of dependency on that substance. So that's what codependency means. So whenever you hear codependency, that's what you should be thinking about. It's only in relation to the dependent on the substance and the codependent. And that can mean a lot of different behavioral things. Sometimes it means dependency, sometimes it means enabling, sometimes it means fighting that results in both people drinking. There's a lot of different complex things there. So use the word dependent, please, out there. Because why not? That's the word for it, clinically speaking. And particularly if you're a clinician out there. Do not use the word codependent when you should be using the word dependent. What's wrong with dependent? It's a wonderful word. It works.
I don't know how things are going. I really don't. Some of the feelings I get, or some of the signals I get from Nicole, are things are going great, and then sometimes I get signals where things are not going so well, and then back again. It seems like it's been a seesaw. The last message I got from Nicole, she sounded pretty anxious. That's got me a little worried.
So I will say that there is absolutely nothing pathological about a mother worrying about her 22-year-old daughter going halfway across the world and getting engaged to someone that, frankly, she barely knows, and to get these messages of things are going well, things are going badly. It's totally normal to be anxious about that. Good parents will always be worried in a situation like this, even if your child was 35 years old, 45 years old. Parents love their kids, so there's nothing pathological about what she's doing right here. And she seems to be handling it okay. At least we're not seeing any dysfunctional behavior, any kind of triangulation, any kind of putting, one thing that could be pathological that we might see in another family and another parent Might be to demand she come home, to write her off, to put her in a bind where she has to choose between her and Azan, to put her down and say, you always make mistakes in your life and this is just another mistake. The moms not do anything like that. So, I feel for her anxiety and her worry. It makes total sense.
I think she's in love, but it's time for reality to set back in and for her to do what is necessary to make sure her and May are well taken care of.
So that last little statement was a little concerning, that she says, okay, fine, she's in love, but, she has to wake up to reality and realize that she has a child. So it sounded a little forceful and a little, over functioning for her daughter. I don't know. Maybe we'll get more data.
I've dealt with this culture, the religion, and the people for 3 years.
I don't know why, but it's just so hard for me to understand it. It's just...
Well, you grew up American, so.
Yeah.
I mean, is this something that you're going to be able to do for the rest of your life? Is this something that you can handle? Knowing that he's never going to be completely American. It will never happen.
Completely American, but I feel like it's going to be different in America.
So this is a wonderful question from her mom's friend. She's basically saying, Azan is not going to change his culture. He's going to remain of his culture. Are you willing to, or in all likelihood, that's what's going to happen. Are you willing to accept that? That's a good, cutting to the chase kind of question, because for Nicole, and she just revealed that, she's like, I think things are going to be different when we go to America. And yeah, they'll be different, but it's possible that a lot of things will remain the same. His attitudes, his ways of seeing the world, and to just believe naively that everything's going to change is maybe not wise. So maybe this friend will be able to clear that up.
Like, he won't have to worry about these things, even though it's cultural.
He still will. He'll still be Moroccan.
Yeah.
I mean, his heart, his way of thinking will always be Moroccan.
Right. So I said this in an earlier episode, but there's this commonly American, but a lot of people suffer from this, is that when you meet someone from another culture, the way Nicole is, Nicole meets Azan, and Azan says, okay, what you're doing right now is not of my culture, and I need you to stop. The way that a lot of Americans believe, particularly mainstream Americans who believe that their way is the way, they'll be like, well, you're just following your culture. I need you to stop doing that, because what I'm doing is right, and what you're doing is following some silly culture. So stop following a culture. But that sort of is weird, because, well, couldn't the other person just say that? Couldn't the other person say, American, you're just following your culture, and I need you to stop that. It's annoying me, and I need you to change. You're just following your culture. Change you and your culture. And so that's the rub, is that for Nicole, she's like, well, he's going to change his culture because I'm going to make him change his, or it'll just be natural. She probably believes when he comes to the United States, his culture will just wash away because he'll realize there's a better way to live, which is a very ugly American notion.
I don't know what to do.
I mean, you can't hold on to a fairy tale just because you think, you can change the ending of the story, because it won't change.
This conversation with Tanya gave me a lot to think about, and to really ask him, I still need to talk to him. I can't give any definite answers. I don't know what the heck is going to happen.
Yeah, so they're rolling the credits, so I'm guessing we're going to have to wait for the next episode to see that conversation. I'm very curious to see how they, talk about things, because I think it's a very worthy conversation to have.
Maybe I would be happier without him. I don't know.
You gotta think. And ultimately do what's best for you.
So I don't know what's going on inside of Nicole, but it is kind of a dependent thing to do, to be so influenceable by other people. When you have certain traumas or certain neglects early in life, you will not develop a connection with yourself. You'll have thoughts and you'll have ideas, but you won't really know who you are and what you want. And so you just proceed forward hoping that what you're doing is actually meeting your needs. And sometimes you're randomly right and sometimes you're not. And so her feeling that she's in love, in one moment seemingly very, very in love, and then she has one conversation with her mom's friend who's saying, he isn't even really saying don't marry the guy. It's just like, it's just, you got to think about these sorts of things. Boom, now she's like, maybe I don't want to get married to him. So that kind of lends itself to a lack of self. We actually saw Tom do this with Darcy. Things seemingly he was what I call a leaf in the wind. Now who knows what's really going on in his mind, but in terms of what was presented to us, it seemed to be that depending on which way the wind was blowing, which is what he felt and thought. And so maybe we're seeing some evidence of that. I don't know. Anyway, well, that does it for that episode of Psychology in Seattle. Thanks for joining me out there, and please take care of yourself. Join us next time when we continue with the story. Take care of yourself because you deserve it. You really, really do.